I don't really have an intro or anything. I didn't plan anything as far as talking, so I'm just going to talk, and let's see how this goes. Captain Nintendo. Just real brief, it was a TV show based off of the NES in the late 80s. The character was a teenager that got sucked into the TV, into Videoland, and it was ridiculous, even by 80s standards, and upon rewatching in the 2020s, it's a little less appealing than it was back in the 80s, but that's fine. Again, some kid that was really good at Nintendo, so they sucked him in kind of like the last Starfighter, but yeah. The Nintendo jacket, his was just a basic Letterman jacket, red and white, with a big black N on the side, and I had contemplated getting that, but in the end I found this, and I thought this was just so much better. I got this off of Amazon, from a company that does like custom work, and you can put whatever you want on the front, you can do the back, you can do the sides and stuff, and again, the more you put on, the higher the price it gets. This was about $50, just the jacket with the Nintendo 86 there. But it fits me perfectly, and it's super comfy. It's not too hot. I would probably never wear this outside unless I'm going to a con or something. And if I was going to con, I would have the accessories on there. What else? The t-shirt is just a basic 3/4 sleeve length baseball, softball jersey. I wanted that particular flavor of t-shirt. Most is just like a yellow collar and the yellow sleeves and stuff like that. And I wanted specifically the yellow front because of the fact that he has a yellow t-shirt. Actually, it's more like a yellow turtleneck. But he has the yellow undershirt and stuff. So I wanted that. And now that I think about it, because of the fact that the Nintendo splits right down the middle, if I were to cosplay with us, it would be with the jacket closed, so the sleeve length is less important. I like the fact that it has a hood. It is a very comfy hood. I don't know what it is about the hood, but it feels more modern and less vintage. Because like if you had a hood in the 80s, that was kind of a dorky thing. But now it's actually cool, and for some reason, just the hood, it seemed to be a nice juxtaposition between like the vintage lettering. It works, in my opinion. A couple of deliberate choices here. 86, I just picked a number in the 80s, and 86 is when I got a Nintendo, so that's why I went with it. I know the years that it came out and blah, 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 East Coast, West Coast, major cities, blah, blah, blah. I just went with 86 because that's when I got it, so. The Jordans, I put those there because the intro to the show is like this live action skit, and you could tell the kid is like a rich kid in the 80s because he's got this massive bedroom. And for most families in the 80s, the Nintendo was the family thing, and even if you were an only child, you still had the Nintendo in the family room because that's where the TV was. This kid has like a Nintendo and a TV in his bedroom, so very clearly he's like a rich kid, and he would absolutely have Jordans in the 80s with Gerbo jeans and a body glove t-shirt. I don't know what. Anyway, moving on. I had wanted to put a blaster core in a Zapper for a while. I don't know if it was a couple of years, not too long, but I've wanted to do that. It just sort of morphed into like, okay, we'll do the controller also because it's got that bar graph right there. I've modified Nintendo controllers in the past.
Are we near a porter, John? Or has someone got the Windies?
So it's pretty easy to modify those. Found this on Amazon. It actually came as bright white. I knew I was going to paint it anyway because I needed to add the little bar graph and the border around it and stuff like that. There was a little bit of a challenge here. And okay, so I was defeated, and I guess I'll explain it to you. This is the controller. I have those RF controlled drivers that I used for... What did I use this for? The Space Bomb, Ancient Hylian Mirror Shield. I wanted to see if I could use this to control the LEDs and then use the remote to basically use the controller buttons and stuff to control the actual behavior of the LED strip. And it did work for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it just went white, and now it doesn't turn on. I tried troubleshooting everything. The battery still works. The NeoPixel strip still works. The recharge port, all the buttons and stuff like that. The remote itself still works. And again, it did work. I basked in my victory until all of a sudden it went white and then it turned off. So can't use this anymore. Maybe at a later date when I have more patience, I can see if this is actually dead or if it's just out of sync. But in the meantime, I found some drivers on Amazon and they're basically hardware. They're not RF controlled. They're just a little tiny PCB in line with the NeoPixel itself so that once you plug it in, it's on. I have an old Pololu, so hopefully I can actually use that to turn it on and off. I just ordered it like 10 minutes ago. To be continued. Everything worked out in the end. This is his life meter in the show, which I thought was actually a pretty clever addition to like how everything works and the video game language, blah, blah, blah. Either way, it's green. Any green that moves would be eye-catching, which is one of the reasons why I wanted the NeoPixels, because it would do something as opposed to just light up. So again, if I was walking around a con with this, it would be fairly eye-catching. It only came with 3 buttons on it. So this is your select up. There's like 70 something different animations that you can do. This is your select down, like the entire D-pad is the select down. The select button is actually the speed. Fortunately, there's only 10 speed settings. I had toyed with the idea in the planning phase of making this have sounds and stuff, and the buttons do stuff like make jumping sounds or fireball sounds and stuff like, you know, classic 8-bit sounds, but there's no way I would have fit that much in there. Currently, I have two 10440s running in parallel. They're on a 5-volt up converter, USB recharge, Pololu board, the driver, and that is about as much as I could cram into this thing. If I wanted to put like a speaker or a soundboard with a removable SD card and all that other stuff in there, I don't think I would have been able to fit that. I might have, but again, that's a parallel universe where I did that one. I forgot to talk about this, and I figured I may as well throw it in here somewhere. So the controller is actually the belt buckle. I had this little metal piece right here with the loop on it, and I had no idea what it was until I went and I fished out this belt, and it had the headdress belt buckle on it, and I was just like, oh hey, that'll be great. Now I don't have to go find a way to secure the controller to a belt buckle. I can just make a belt buckle out of this, and it's just on some 16th inch aluminum, and there's a couple of washers behind the 3mm screws, and that's it. This is actually just the belt buckle, so it worked out great for that. Okay, the end. Okay, so did I pull it out? Yeah, I pulled it out already. There's a little switch on here, right there, and it hits on, let's see if I can show this. Probably not. There's a little spot right here that butts up against that, which will power it off. And when you pull it out, or when you draw it, it powers on. And when you put it in, it powers off. Alright, so here's the insides of the Zapper. This was a cheap knockoff. It was like 15 bucks on Amazon. A couple of things that ended up being a good thing was the fact that the plastic is a lot cheaper. It's really thin, but it made it really easy to clip with, like, you know, flush cutters and stuff, so I could actually just cut that away really precisely without having to worry about like hacksaws or anything like that. Also, the trigger, while it does click, it's not a big chunk like the old NES Zapper was. This is a little bit quieter because then it won't overspeak the actual sounds. At full volume, that doesn't overspeak it. This is a Blaster Core version 4, standard recharge port and double 14500 pack underneath it. That's the aux. Trigger, I used the switch that it came with, and it was kind of cool, so I kept it. I went through a couple of different speakers. Originally this had a 28mm speaker, and I sounded like absolute dog poopy, so I switched it up to be one of the, I forgot what they're called. I'll put a picture up. Those were notorious for being really sensitive because if you have them at full volume, it'll blow the speaker. So you got to keep them at like 75%. And that doesn't really work when you're testing out new sound mixing and stuff. And it just so happened that I got the sound mix a little bit too loud and it ended up blowing the speaker as I was testing it. I just went with the 3-watt 4 ohms and it sounds great now. That's the switch that actually cuts off the power, kind of the same thing as the recharge port. So this will cut it off entirely, but when this is out, this will cut it off also. And I'm hoping to make a holster so that when it slides in, it'll catch that, so that when you draw it, it'll power on, and you'll hear the power on sound. That's the hope. The LED is another Lux 3, but this one is a Bin 1 Cyan, classic baby blue. Actually, in real life, it's a little bit more aqua than it appears on camera, but that's fine. It still looks really cool. Good hue. And then the tip here is just a resin cabochon. The trigger guard. In addition to getting the shape right, I had to make it so that you could actually spin it on your finger, which means I had to bolster. I couldn't just glue it in. So the base is aluminum, and it's bolstered on either side with some 6mm Sintra, and then I just filed it down to shape. And these right here, I realized it needed a little bit extra support on the inside. So it fits into the little groove right here, which again was very nice to have the nice soft plastic, but at the same time, it would have probably given away sooner or later. So I just bolstered this on either side so that when it pulls, it'll have a little bit extra support. And that's at the top and the bottom. So I painted it so that this part and this part were gray also. This was actually black to begin with, and in the picture this looks red, but it's actually a little bit more red-orange, and it kind of makes it look like a little bit more of the Nintendo Zapper, but not super bright orange, but it's a nice happy medium. And that's it. Alright, back to the main video. One thing to note that I didn't actually say in that thing was the NES Zapper. This isn't an actual NES Zapper. The Switch hardware is freaking massive, and I could have possibly maneuvered around it. This is like minimal. Ideal for putting guts in it. Happy accident. It sounds great. That's Mega Man. Metroid. That's actually Mega Man dying, like when he blows up. So, lots of fun Easter egg sounds in there. Yes, it absolutely needed the trigger guard because, like, he spins it on his finger all the time.
You were saying? Well, I think this tour is hot.
While I can do that, I can't necessarily reholster it while you're spinning it. I'll see if I can. This is harder than it looks. I don't think I could. The holster is just some EVA with Tolex covering everything. Tolex is like faux leather vinyl-y stuff. It works really well as kind of like an after finish to give a leathery type appearance. Spur of the moment decision that it ended up working out just fine. So that is my Captain Nintendo reimagined cosplay. Okay, see you later. Insert Jeopardy theme. Is that the right waiting theme? Yeah, Jeopardy is the waiting theme.